Hello everyone and welcome to my new video lesson. Today I'm going to discuss with you the lesson Sunshine Susan written by Deepa Kiran. I'm going to begin with a question. Have you ever heard of the slogan Beti Bachao Beti Padhao? Have you ever wondered what this slogan really means? Well, Beti Bachao means save the girl child. Beti Padhao means educate the girl child. This is an initiative undertaken by the Union Government of India in order to highlight the importance of the girl child in society. You must be aware that in many parts of India, society is largely patriarchal. It is a male-dominated society where a girl has to suffer a lot of discrimination. It is the male child who is given preference over the girl child. Quite often, the girl child is seen as a liability and not an asset. In this story, Sunshine Susan, the protagonist Susan, is a college-going teenager. She has to suffer a lot of discrimination in her family as well as in society. But Susan is no ordinary girl. She is gritty, bold, courageous, and determined. She has a dream. Her dream is to pursue college education, and she is very passionate about her dream. In this lesson, we shall learn how Susan overcomes all handicaps, all challenges, all obstacles and hurdles in order to make her dream a reality. Susan lives with her father, mother, elder brother Sandy, and grandmother. Her grandmother is an old, infirm lady. Because of her advanced age and physical weakness, she is not able to do any household chore. Her father is a man of modest means. He is a beekeeper and works in a bee farm. Her mother is a homemaker. She works hard at home. They have a nice little house built by her grandfather, and it is located in a village by the side of the river. Susan, who is a college-going teenager, is 17 years old, and she is 5 feet 3 inches in height. She is fit and physically strong. She takes very good care of herself. She is bursting with energy and enthusiasm. Because of her abundant energy and enthusiasm, she is nicknamed Rocket by her friends. Susan, who takes good care of herself, goes for a run in the hills every day. Susan enjoys doing household chores except one thing, which is cooking. She loves eating, but she hates cooking. But then, every fortnight, that is every 2 weeks, her father, who is a beekeeper, goes to the market to sell honey. And every time he goes to the market, Susan has to skip college. And she hates missing college because Susan is very passionate about her education. Whenever her father goes to the market, he takes his son Sandy with him, but he never takes Susan with him. This is something that annoys Susan. She has requested her father time and again to take her to the market, but her father puts her off, saying that it is the job of a man. that she should stay at home and help her mom. Whenever her father goes to the market, he returns home late in the evening accompanied by a bunch of friends. And Susan's mother has to prepare meals for her husband and his friends. And this is the reason why Susan has to skip college, stays at home. She has to help her mom in the kitchen to prepare meals for her father and his friends. It was not easy for Susan to persuade her parents to send her to college. Initially, her parents were reluctant to send her to college. Firstly, they felt that college education was not necessary for Susan, that she should stay at home and help her mom in the kitchen. Secondly, they were very frank in telling her that they just couldn't afford to send her to college. They didn't have enough money for her college education. This was a severe blow to Susan. She felt disheartened and dejected. She began to think what she could do in order to pursue her dream. Now, Susan had a friend. It was a tree. The tree was called the November tree, and the tree was just outside her window. Susan was always amazed by this tree because every autumn the tree would shed its leaves and then new blossoms, white blossoms would burst forth on its naked branches, and Susan was mesmerized by its beauty. She would sit under the tree and then share her story with the tree. She felt that the tree was sympathetic towards her, that it gave her a patient hearing like a true friend. Now, one day, Susan was sitting under the tree, lost in thought. She was contemplating how she could go to college. At that moment, a white blossom dropped on her lap. And Susan had a brainwave. A brainwave means a sudden idea. It was her light bulb moment. It was a moment of epiphany for her. She was so excited that she went running all the way to her father's bee farm where he was working. He told her excitedly that she would like to join the bee farm and work there and earn her salary, and with that money she would be able to fund her education. As usual, her father was lukewarm in his response. He told her that he would think about it later, that she should go home now, and she should not create a scene in the bee farm. Now, the wife of the bee farm's owner happened to be there when Susan was talking to her father. Her name was Mrs. Andrews. She happened to overhear the conversation between Susan and her father. She was impressed by Susan's desire for education. She decided to step in. She decided to intervene on behalf of Susan. She walked up to Susan's father and told him that he should be proud of his daughter, that Susan was so keen on her education, that she was so passionate about her education. Then she turned to Susan and told her that she could join the farm the very next day. She also told Susan that learning the art of beekeeping was not an easy thing to do, that she must learn the skill of beekeeping from her father. And if she was persistent, if she worked hard, then she would succeed. Susan was beside herself with joy. She was so excited that she left the place without thanking Mrs. Andrews. And the very next day, she went back to the farm and started working there. She began to learn from her father the skill of beekeeping. Her father explained to her that initially it would be very, very difficult, that while working she should wear a special hat with a mesh around it so that her neck and face would be protected from the sting of the bee. He also told her to study the behavior of the bee, to observe the bee carefully and to understand it. Susan was a very, very sincere student. She picked up the skill of beekeeping very fast, and in no time she was able to pick up the skill. She became one of the best beekeepers in the farm. After 1 month, she got her first salary. And do you know what she did with her first salary? Well, she spent a portion of her salary on buying a bottle of honey, which was bottled by her. She stuck a label, Sunshine Honey, on top of the bottle and took it home. She handed it over to her grandmother. Her grandmother was elated. She was delighted when Susan handed over that bottle of honey to her. She tasted the honey and said that it was the best honey she had ever tasted in her life. All the family members gathered around her and everyone felt proud. They felt proud of what Susan had done. It was a very, very proud moment for the entire family. Now, Susan very soon opened her own business. She was a very, very enterprising girl. So what she did, she set up her own business. She set up her own bee farm. And with the money that she earned, she funded her education. She started going to college. Now, Susan had critics. Her neighbors felt that Susan was wasting her time, that she was a girl, she should stay at home and help her mom. Besides, she was going to get married very soon. So what was the use of acquiring college education? Now, Susan treated her critics with indifference and silence. This was a lesson that she had learned from her grandmother. Her grandmother was a fabulous storyteller. She had a large fund of stories, and Susan's favorite story was The Frogs That Raced Up a Castle. The story ran like this. One day, a group of frogs decided to run a race. They decided that they were going to scramble up the wall of a castle. Now, it was a very, very difficult job for frogs, but nevertheless, they started the race. Then, a crowd gathered at that place, and while watching the frogs trying to climb up the wall of the castle, the people began to discourage them. They started saying that it was an impossible task, that they would never pull it off. So they said that they were going to fall off and get hurt. The frogs were discouraged by this negative criticism. So what they did, one by one, they gave up trying, except one frog. One particular frog kept moving up and up and up. And in the end, the frog managed to reach the top of the castle, to the great astonishment of the crowd that had gathered below. Now, as soon as the frog reached the top of the castle, Everyone in the crowd started clapping, cheering, and applauding the frog. A short while ago, there were critics. They were trying to discourage all the frogs, but now they turn into Arden champions, Arden fans. So as the frog reached the top, a bird flew up and offered to carry him down on its wings. On the way down, the bird asked the frog, "Well, every frog gave up except you. What made you keep going and going and going?" The frog turned to the bird and said, "Eh?" At that moment, it became obvious to the bird and everyone in the crowd that the frog was deaf. Since the frog was deaf, it could not hear the criticism of the crowd. And since the frog could not hear the discouraging words, it kept moving on and on and on and managed to succeed, whereas everyone else had failed. This was an important lesson for Susan. The message resonated with her. It stuck with her forever. She always ignored her critics and naysayers. The word naysayer means a critic, a person who takes a negative view of things, who discourages others. So whenever anybody would criticize Susan, she would turn a deaf ear to them. Soon afterwards, Susan was faced with another challenge. And this time, it was a bike. She had to cope with a bike which was presented to her by her uncle so that she'd be able to commute to college and her workplace. It was a difficult challenge for her. When she first started learning how to ride the bike, she found it very difficult. She would kickstart the bike, get on top of it, and then she would skid and fall, much to the delight and amusement of her brother Sandy and his friends. But then, she was a gritty girl. She was determined, she was tenacious, and she persisted in her attempt despite all the ridicule that she faced from her brother Sandy and his friends. Lo and behold, she managed to master the skill, and her riding skill proved invaluable to her later on in life. One day it so happened that her father and brother Sandy, they were away from home. Susan was at home with her mother and granny. Suddenly, Susan heard her mother crying out in agonizing pain. She rushed where her mother was and saw a snake slithering away. She immediately realized that her mother was bitten by a poisonous snake. It was a critical moment. Her mother needed immediate medical attention. She had to act and act very, very quickly. She calmed herself down and then she began to think how she could handle the situation. Very soon she was able to come up with an idea. The nearest hospital was far away from her home. The only bus from the village had already left. There was no other vehicle available, so what could she do? Then she realized that she could use her bike to take her mother to the hospital, and that's precisely what she did. With the help of her granny, she carried her mother, put her on the back seat of the bike. She mounted the bike and then tied her mother to herself with the help of a rope and rushed her mother to the nearest hospital. Since she was able to shift her mother to the hospital quickly, she was able to save her life. If she didn't know how to ride the bike, probably her mother would not have survived. Since she was able to save her mother's life, everybody started applauding her bravery and her presence of mind. All her critics fell silent. In this way, she was able to silence all her critics. She proved that she was a girl of mettle, that whatever she set her mind to, she could do, that she was no less than a boy. Now, this is a lesson that we can learn from Susan's life, that if we are determined, firm, resolute, and tenacious, and if we pursue our dream with dogged determination and great zeal, then we will succeed no matter what. I hope you have enjoyed this story. You've enjoyed listening to this story. I would love to hear feedback from you. You can always get in touch with me, and then you can drop a comment in the comment section. I'm going to wind up the lesson here. Take good care of yourself. Stay safe, stay healthy. Bye for now.